Bharadhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Randana Jasodanandana Brajajana Randana Jamuna Thira Vanachari Jamuna Thira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Radha Vadanata Radha Vadanata Radhe Jayo Radha Vadanata Radha Vadanata Radhe Jai Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jai Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gora Hari Gora Hari Gora Hari Jai Gora Hari Jaya Gora Hari Gora Hari Gora Hari Jai Gora Hari Jaya Bhaktisiddanta Sarasvati Thakura Bhaktisiddanta Sarasvati Thakura Jaya Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakura Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakura Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Usitat Sri Srimat His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktisiddanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki His Kon Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki BBT Founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Usitat Sri Srimat His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Mat Srila Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhari Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Shri Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Lord Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Shri Gaura Hari Ki Shri Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Shri Prabhupada Ki Nidai Gopramanande. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to the Samal devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I've been instructed by Alnar Prabhu to speak on Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur. Although I don't think I'm prepared to give this class. We'll try our level best. So there's a nice verse that was written by Srila Bhaktisiddanta Sarasvati Thakura. So I thought I'll read that just as a introduction. Oh, to say some verse would be nice like that it is actually. No? So it says, Dustamana Tuma Krishna Vaishnave Pratista Hara Thare Nirajana Gare Tava Hari Nama Kevala Ketava. The translation is, says, Oh rascal mind, what kind of Vaishnava are you? In a lonely place, your chanting of Hare Krishna is simply cheating, actually. So this is a very long song, but Vaishnava in this sense means that he doesn't want any material profit or material opulence or material reputation. He doesn't want anything. But in the material world, everyone is busy with three things, namely material profit, material reputation, and material adoration. This is not a Vaishnava's business. Vaishnava never cares for all these things. Vaishnava is always thinking how to do good to the suffering humanity. So this was Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakura's mood, so maybe we'll start at the beginning. So Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was born on the 6th of February in 1874, right? You got the date right. So he was born to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhagavati, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wife. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, if you go back and do a little bit of historical reference, he was one of the magistrates that was given the service of by the British government, and he was one of the highest Indian ranking people at that point in time. Being a magistrate, he had lots of hold and lots of power, and obviously being an Indian magistrate, the British government would give him lots of facility at the same time, actually. So in that way, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was trying to establish Krishna consciousness again. After the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, there were many Aprasampradayas that appeared actually. People were doing all sorts of funny things in the names of Lord Chaitanya. None of them could be said to be exactly following in the tradition of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was very simple actually, like it is, that this Krishna consciousness should spread to every town and village. And he gave certain characteristics of how it should be managed, like that it is, So in terms of a sannyasi, which he was, one should not associate frivolously with the opposite sex or behave frivolously in a manner like that it was. And in the case of Junior Haridas, he banished him just for glancing at a woman lustfully, like that it is. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set very strict standards. But the Upper Sampradayas came and they were doing all sorts of things. They were breaking all the regulated principles and they were doing funny things in the name of Lord Chaitanya. So nobody was actually following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he realized this, and then he was starting to try and do some re-establishment of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, actually, like that. So he wrote a book called The Life and Precepts of Lord Chaitanya. And this was actually sent to England in the early days, but it didn't catch at that point in time. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was sitting one day in his house, and he lives across the road from Srila Mayapur, Navadvip, and he saw this vision actually. He saw this vision of a beautiful temple and of people chanting Hare Krishna from all walks of life, like that it is. And initially he thought it was like a dream, something that he imagined. And he asked his servant who was sitting there, "Did you see that?" And his servant said, "No." And his son was also sitting there. And he asked him, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yes, I did actually." So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this vivid realization that this birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on the other side of the Ganga. So he went and he started looking. And eventually he came to what we know today as Yogapit. And he saw that there was this tulasi trees. There were so many tulasis growing all over the place. But Everywhere around this area, this vicinity were Muslim people, and Muslim people are not renowned for taking care of tulasi, and tulasi won't grow in such a place. So just to verify that he was actually doing the right thing, he brought Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj and came. And it is said that Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj at that point in time, he was so old that he couldn't walk. He had to be carried in a basket like that. Actually. So his servant brought him and he came to this Yogapit place, and immediately when he got there, he got out of the basket and he started jumping up and down like really, really high. It is saying that he was jumping 6 feet off the floor, chanting, Gora Hari, like that. And so he confirmed Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's idea that this was the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was really trying seriously hard to establish Krishna consciousness. He wanted to build a facility at the Yoga Pit, so he went around collecting 1 paisa from every household. Imagine, as the magistrate of the area, he was collecting money like this. Anyway, so at some point in time, he went back to Jagannath Puri. And at Jagannath Puri, he was praying to Lord Jagannath that, he found a Chaitanya Chaitamrita that was written in Orissa like that, in Odisha. There was no other version of Chaitanya Chaitamrita at that point in time, actually. And he was studying that thing, and then he was praying that, at his age, he couldn't really do much. So he was praying to Lord Jagannath to please send someone to help him in his preaching mission, actually, get it is. And then Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur appeared. And it is said that Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was born, when he appeared, he had his umbilical cord wrapped around like a Brahmin thread, actually. So this is one of the signs that he was, he was already a very great devotee, like that it is. And this was further enhanced, 6 months later, the Rath Yatra procession or cart was going past, and Srila Bhaktisiddanta lived on the main road. So the cart stopped in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, actually, and refused to move for 3 days, actually. So apparently this happens even today sometimes, like Jagannath will come and he'll stand in one place and then he'll just stay there and he won't go anywhere. So we have to try that in Durban also, Sukumari. See if you just stay one place like that. So anyway, so he stayed there for 3 days like that it is, and then Bhagavati Mataji, the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, she was thinking that the Lord is outside my house, maybe I should take my son and get some blessings. And apparently she took Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur and she placed him on the cart of Lord Jagannath. And as she did that, the garland from Lord Jagannath fell onto Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, basically garlanding him. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhagavati Mataji realized that this personality that they had was a great personality. He was definitely one of the, the answer to the prayers that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was doing for someone to propagate Krishna consciousness like that it is, and to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So his name, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur kept his name Bimala Prasad. It's very interesting that Bimala Prasad, in Jagannath temple, they have a deity called Bimala Devi. So Bimala Devi, she has a benediction. She's Mahamaya, Annapurna, depending what you want to call her. So she has a benediction that whenever Lord Jagannath eats, his direct remnants will be given to her, like that. It is first, before anybody else, actually. No one else will get any Mahaprasad until it is offered to Bimala Devi, like that it is. So this Bimala Devi is responsible for distributing the mercy of Lord Jagannath. So this is her responsibility, because Mahaprasad, or Jagannath Mahaprasad especially, is like that. It's meant to be distributed, and this is how Jagannath spreads his mercy. The more Mahaprasad be distributed, the more people eat Mahaprasad, the better in terms of their spirituality or their liberation, becomes a little bit more eligible, like that it is in that respect. So it is very amazing that Bimala Prasad and Bimala Devi, that link is there, simply because the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being propagated through Bimala Prasad, like that it is actually. And you can see this, it is, like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he drew the blueprint for Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, he executed that to a great extent. And then Srila Prabhupada, he completed this thing by setting up ISKCON in its entirety, like that it is. Because this is one of the things that Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur wanted, that the Gaudiya Math should function under governing body, like that it is, which they didn't do. But Srila Prabhupada did that, and that's how the perfection of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's blueprint became fulfilled by Srila Prabhupada, like that it is. So in this sense, Bimala Prasad was responsible for distributing the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and very efficiently and effectively as well, actually. It is said that Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, as he grew up, at the age of 7, I think he had already memorized the whole entire Bhagavad Gita. His father had given him Harinam at that time with the Japa Mala of Tulsi beads, like it is. And he was chanting, he was following in that process. Now again, you may ask the question, he got Harinam at 7 and then he got initiated when he was 22 or 23 or something like that it is, by Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So prior to Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, initiation meant getting Gayatri Mantra. Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada made this Harinam first initiation, second initiation thing available for all the Western people. Actually, we didn't qualify for this previously. Previously, it was just Gayatri and you were initiated, actually, so you're done. And even today, in this day and age, Harinam is sufficient to take you back to Godhead, actually, like it is. That's how powerful the holy name is. But still, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him that at the age of 7 and gave him the Shinga mantra also, like it is. Now, it's very interesting that he gave him the holy name, which was readily available, and he gave him the Shinga mantra. The Shinga mantra was given for him simply for protection or the removal of obstacles in the spiritual path, like that it is, actually. And it is said that when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came back and he was building a house, during the excavation they found the deity of Kurma Devi, like that, or Kurma. So Kurma Dev is the deity of water, of liquidity, like that it is, actually. And Bhakti Ras is a mellow, actually, it's liquid. So very amazing that this Kurma Dev deity was given to Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur in the mood of Bhakti Ras, like that, for him to relish the mellows of Bhakti and to actually distribute his mellows of Bhakti at the same time, actually. So that's what Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur did. And as he grew up, he became such an exemplary personality for preaching Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur entrusted him with many things. He was doing editing for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was doing publishing for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even at a young age, like that, actually. When he was in his teens, he was doing all these activities for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Although Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had other sons, but it seemed that Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was the personality that just, naturally followed in his father's footsteps, if you could call it that. Although all the other children were devotees as well. And he was the one person that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur looked at to take forward the mission of preaching Krishna consciousness. It was very amazing. So sometimes you find that, the disciples and the Guru has some special link with one of the disciples or in a particular ras, like it is. Although sometimes people think, he is favoring or not favoring, but the idea is not that. The Guru will treat everybody according to the respective positions because he understands the eligibility of the disciple to carry out the instructions that he gives, actually, like that. And in Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur's case, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur understood that this personality can and will execute the mission of Krishna consciousness. So as he grew up, he became more and more of a bigger personality. And it is said that, when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur told him to take initiation from Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he told him very emphatically, if you don't take initiation from Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, your life will be useless, actually. You have to take initiation from him, So Bhaktisiddhanta, he went and he approached Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And Gorkishore Das Maharaj was saying, me, I'm illiterate. Give you, at that time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had gone through college, he had gone through different Sanskrit universities, he had established his own school. There was no way, he was known as one of the most learned people at that point in time. And Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj was known as the person that was illiterate. So Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj told him, how can I give you initiation? I'm illiterate, actually. You're such a great scholar, it's crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. But Bhaktisiddhanta was pleading and saying, no, please, you're a Paramahamsa, please give me initiation. So Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj was quite nice, actually, so he said, okay, I'll pray to Krishna. I'll ask Krishna, like that kind of thing, actually. The other person that does that is His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. You're asking for some blessing, he'll tell you, I'll ask Krishna. So quite amazing. So he waited, and he went back a little later, and he asked Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj again, and Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, no, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, actually, So Bhaktisiddanta, he was, like waiting for him, and then eventually he went back again, and then he asked again, and Gaurkishora said, no, I forgot to ask actually. And then Bhaktisiddanta told him, if you don't give me initiation, I'm going to go jump in the Ganga and drown myself, I'll commit suicide, like that it is. So when he said that, Gaurkishora Bhajmaji, he relented and said, okay, go take a bath and come back, and then I'll give you initiation. And that's when he gave him the Gayatri mantra that he was chanting, like that it is. And that's how he became known as Sarasvati, like that it is. Anyway, prior to that, because of his scholarly abilities, he was given the title of Siddhanta Saraswati, like that, because of his extensive knowledge and because of his erudite scholarship. So this just became cemented, like that it is actually. So at this point in time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gaurkishora Bhajmaji, they left the planet very shortly after one another, like that it is. So Bhaktisiddanta was thinking, what to do. He wanted to preach according to what his father had given, and even Gaurkishora's Babaji Maharaj had given him an instruction that to spread this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then he decided that, in order to prepare himself, he'll sit down and he will chant. 1,000, well, there's different stories. There's some saying that he chanted 1 billion names of Krishna, some saying he chanted 300,000 names a day for 10 years, like that it is. So whatever the calculation may be, it was like that. But he chanted that, and then he realized that, people will not take him seriously if he preaches to them as a householder. He had to get into this renounced order of life. And again, very interestingly, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had taken Babaji Vesh, like that. So he was wearing white. And Gaurkishora Das Babaji Maharaj also was wearing white, like that. Very interesting, Gaurkishora Das Babaji Maharaj, he was a merchant actually, like that. And he was staying in Vrindavan. Very interesting. And then when his wife left the planet, he stayed in Vrindavan for some time, but eventually he came back to Mayapur and adopted this Babaji Vesh, like that it is actually. So that Babaji Vesh didn't really exist so much in Mayapur. He came from Radhakund, like that, because that's where the Babajis would be established actually. It is said that he was really, he was an amazing person, although he was illiterate, but he knew how to run business, like that. It's actually incredible. So anyway, so Bhaktisiddanta didn't want to imitate either his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or his spiritual master, Gaurkishora Das Babaji Maharaj, and dress up as a Babaji, like that it is actually. He felt it would be disrespectful to them, he felt it would not be proper. So therefore, he decided that he'll take sannyas actually, like that it is. So it is described that, he decided that he was going to take sannyas. He put a picture of Srila Gaurkishora Das Babaji Maharaj up, and he went and he had a bath and he shaved up, and he went into the hut where he was staying, alone apparently, and all his people that were his followers were outside of his bhajan kuti or hut at that point in time. And then he took the vows of a sannyas, he changed the cloth, like that it is, came out of there with his danda and in a sannyas vesh, like that it is, and everybody was lamenting very much because they was equating that scene to the one of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas and shaving his head, like that it is actually. So although the devotees were happy in one sense, they were also lamenting in the other sense that, Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur had now renounced everything, because according to the Vaishnava Siddhanta, and again, this is something that Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur established, this Tridhandi sannyasi, like that it is. Where you surrender with your body, mind and words, like that it is actually. Jai Shri Shri Radharanath ki jai, Shri Guranga Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah, so he established this Tridhandi sannyasi aspect again into the Vaishnava tradition, like that it is actually, making it compulsory going forward, like that. And this is because, remember, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken Ekadanda sannyas. So in this case, mind, body and words are now surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna and be used only in the service of Krishna. And Srila Bhaktisiddanta started to emulate that mood, like that it is actually. And that's the same mood that Srila Prabhupada took, and then today it's being executed in ISKCON at the same time actually. So after this, Srila Bhaktisiddanta, he started preaching very, 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 very boldly, very strongly, in many ways, he was the leading preacher at that point in time, because there was no one else that was actually propagating Krishna consciousness. And Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was doing it in two ways. He started his Brihat Mridanga, his press, which came from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he just started making it a bigger and bigger effect to spread out, to push out the holy names through the medium of writing or books like that. Essentially. Remember, in our ISKCON tradition, you'll find like Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were given the instruction by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to rediscover the holy places in Vrindavan and to write about Krishna's and Radharani's pastimes, and even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are being written like that. And they wrote these things down actually. And then it got lost. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came and he re-established writing again, because books became a very strong factor in education. Like that. If you had a book, if you had one of those scrolls back in the day, then you were considered to be somebody important because you had something very important. And if you read it and you practiced it, it was even more important like that. And the same with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur. And you can see, what did Srila Bhaktisiddanta tell Srila Prabhupada? If you ever get money, print books. And that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He printed books and he distributed books. For Srila Prabhupada, the distribution of books was very important because it was an order of Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, that you would distribute these books like that profusely, because by distributing it, people will become Krishna conscious like that. And Srila Prabhupada, it is said that the writing of Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, or even Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was so high that general people would not be able to understand or to appreciate the writing like that. And Brahma Samhita is one such book like that actually. But Srila Prabhupada, he tailored that thing so much so for the people of Kali Yuga that he made it palatable, it made it digestible, it made it understandable actually like that it is. But if you read Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books and if you read Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur's books, then you will find that the English is a lot higher like that it is actually. Actually, His Holiness Bhakti Charma said one time that, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddanta wrote like that just to teach the English people, or to show the English people that we know English better than you, we can write better than you actually. And J. Advaita Maharaj made a very interesting point. He said that the Indians in South Africa speak better English than the English in England actually. So all glories to the Indian people, or the Indian people in South Africa like that. So this is the importance of placing in that books have been given in our sampradaya like it is, and therefore today, even today, in ISKCON, the whole emphasis is pushing on books, pushing books. But obviously the emphasis is getting lost with the introduction of e-books and the internet and all the social media platforms. It's diminishing what books can actually do. But still, you'll be amazed, like in the last marathon, in India they distributed millions and millions of Bhagavad Gitas actually like that. So there's still a great need. People want to see books, and it is our responsibility to do that. Hmm? 20 past. So anyway, coming back to this, so Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching like this all over the place. There was one incident during the lifetime of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he was meant to be presenting a paper, when there was a big debate between who was better, Vaishnavas or Brahmins, like that it is actually. And Srila Bhaktisiddanta Thakur was sick at that point in time and he couldn't go actually. So then Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, that he'll go and he'll present this paper like that it is. And there were many erudite scholars there and many high-ranking people speaking in different camps like that it is about Vaishnavism and Brahmanism and which one is better. And when he came to it is mentioned that they were sitting like in two different camps. So the Brahmanas were sitting there and the Vaishnavas were sitting here. And remember, at that point in time, Brahmanism, or being born in a Brahminical family, meant that you had some eligibility to do so many things like that it is. And as a Vaishnava, you wasn't given so much importance because they didn't really see Vaishnavas as a Brahminical class or some in that aspect. So when Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur started to speak, he started glorifying the Brahmanas. saying how, from a Shastric point of view, the Brahmanas were the head of society and how they were the holders of the religious principles, and it was their responsibility to push forward the teachings and the preachings of the Shastra, like it is, you know. And the Brahmanas were like really beaming from year to year. You know, they were so happy with Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur. And then he started talking about the Vaishnavas, and he said, but the Vaishnavas are higher than the Brahmins, actually. And the example he gave, like, so remember, in the material world, we have different levels like that. It is of which the Brahmanical class. So you get Sudras, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and then Brahmanas, like that it is, right? But the Brahmana, these categories are all within the material capacity, like that it is. They're within the material world, like that it is. But the Vaishnava is above this, actually. So Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati made that point, that Vaishnavas are above the three modes of material nature, and therefore they're better than the Brahmanas, actually. So that created a little bit of a problem, like that it is. But eventually that fact was established, that the Vaishnavas are better than the Brahmanas, and this really gave the Vaishnavas an opportunity to expand the mission of Krishna consciousness, like that it is, actually. So, fast tracking again, now that he had taken sannyas and he was preaching, he had met, Srila Prabhupada writes in his Leelamrita, that he met Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur through his friend Naren, you know. So Naren told him to come see this Swami or this saintly Prasadu because he felt it was really a good person. And Srila Prabhupada was very dubious about the whole thing. He has seen so many sadhus in his life, so many of them had come to his house, and none of them seemed to be of any stature that he could actually relate to, like that it is. And at that point in time, Srila Prabhupada was mainly thinking of following the Gandhian philosophy and how India should be liberated from the British rule, like that it is, so they can establish their position, like that. And religion didn't seem to become so important in that space, actually. But eventually Naren convinced Srila Prabhupada to go, and they went, and they met at Ultadanga, right? And remember, so just as a note, actually, so if you go there today, that building at Ultadanga is now an ISKCON property, actually, which is amazing. After many decades of fighting and arguing, and the person that owned it didn't really want to sell it to ISKCON, but eventually the devotees in Calcutta have now purchased it, and they're renovating that thing very nicely. And yeah, you can actually, it's very nice right now. If you go there, you'll appreciate that whole area. I went 2019. When we went in 2019, the property wasn't transferred at that point in time because there were still discussions. They didn't allow us inside the building. We had to stand outside and take darshan. But the building was really in a rundown state, actually, completely rundown, like that it is. And then when we went in 2022, December, I went back to Calcutta. And then the devotees had taken over the temple, and they had revamped the entire thing. And it is absolutely, from what it was, I mean, I think I have a picture of it back then, and I think I have a picture of it now. So you can't compare, actually. The devotees have done such a sterling job. Even the place where Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was sitting, they made it into a garden, and he told Prabhupada, you know, like that it is. You know, you look like an intelligent man. You should spread this message of Krishna consciousness in the English medium language, like that it is, actually. And remember, Srila Prabhupada at that point in time was saying, but no, you know, first India should become free, like that it is, from the British rule. And then Bhaktisiddanta told him that freedom from the British rule doesn't mean freedom from anything else, actually, like that it is, because the religious principles, the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about how to go back to the spiritual is more important than any material freedom, like that it is, or any material designation. And Srila Prabhupada left, he was impressed, you know, like that it is. And Srila Prabhupada writes also that when he saw Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, Alnad Prabhu just gave me his computer just now, so whatever little I remember from reading, I'll tell you. He said Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur was sitting on a Vyasasan, dressed to these robes. He had only his sannyas cloth on, like that it is. And from his neck, you could see his Brahman thread being looped around his neck and across his torso. And just the look of him, you could see that he had tilak on, neck beads on, and he looked like a Vaishnava, actually. So Srila Prabhupada and Narayan at that time, they both were born in Vaishnava family, so they knew how to to see a sadhu. And immediately upon seeing Bhaktisiddanta like that, they offer their obeisances like that. And then after the discussions with Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada was more impressed. And he left and he was making the point that this Krishna consciousness or the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in good hands with such a personality like that. Actually. And it was Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur's duty or his mission was to flatten or to smash the smarter Brahmins and to establish the principles of Krishna consciousness actually. And that's what he did, wherever he preached, he was very direct, very straightforward. And he wasn't mincing his words in terms of what was right and what was wrong. And it is said that he didn't fright to use material things, and this Yukta Vairagya came from him actually, I get it, using everything in Krishna's service actually. So remember, he went to Radhakund, in a car with his disciples dressed in three-piece suits like that it is, and the caste Brahmins sitting there and thinking, what kind of sadhu are you, like that it is actually. But he established the principles of Krishna consciousness in that way, very strongly, very emphatically, making sure that people understood that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the center of this Sankirtan movement that was beginning, that was started by Rupa Goswami and was being pushed forward by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it was the responsibility of everybody to take it forward actually. Yeah, that's about as much as I can say now, Leonard Prabhu. Does anybody have any comments or questions? You want to add anything that I missed out? There's some nice bhajans for Bhaktisiddanta, but maybe tomorrow, if we get a chance actually. There's one that I particularly like that Srila Prabhupada wrote, but we'll see. Any comments? Please feel free to add something that you may know. One thing, anything? Sukumari Mataji. You must remember something. Nikunja Mataji. Something, come. Alana Prabhu caught me last minute, give class because everybody else ditched him actually. If I find this song, I can tell you about it, but I don't know. Let's see. And it's a nice Bengali bhajan that was sung by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada wrote this and it was sung by His Holiness Bhakti Chawar Maharaj. But maybe tomorrow, if we can. Let's see if I can find it first. Yeah. So, Prabhu, something. Alan Prabhu, you can add something. You've been reading whole night. Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, I apologize for my incompetence. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhaktisiddanta Saraswati Thakur ki, Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Nitai Gopramanande. Namo.